Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to Out of the Park Baseball. This is episode number 12. So we're 105 games into the season. We've had our second lengthy losing streak in a fairly short while, and at 25 games below 500, the wheels fell off pretty quickly with the team, and that's fine. You know, part of that, I think, is still a relatively small part, but part of that has to do with the fact that if you remember, during the offseason, we revamped the minor league coaching staff. The major league, the senior level coaching staff is still utter garbage with expiring contracts this year. So we will revamp that, coming up into next season. But that could absolutely be a pretty significant factor into why this team is underperforming based on the massive turnaround that we've had. And, it could also be down to these guys really not gelling, as, it's solidly new faces through here. They haven't played together for a lengthy period of time. And, that could be a fairly significant factor as well. But anyway, the minor league system, the revamp there that I was talking about previously is all but complete right now. We're averaging right about 25 per minor league roster now, but part of that is there's quite a few guys that are injured. Quite a few out injured, so actually that number is still up somewhere around 28 or so. There's still pieces that could be done away with. Now, of course, the AAA, AA, we're all up to talented individuals there, but single A still has a handful of players that could be sent on their way. We still have the short A season team that is loaded with throwaway players, and the rookie league, slowly but surely, I've been making a bigger dent in this group, and we're really kind of getting down to the bare bones of players that need to be removed from the roster and traded and sent on their way. So here's the deal. Secondary roster, our 40-man roster, has space right now for 5 additional players. 5. Now, there are some options that are out there via trade where teams are desperate to free a spot in their 40-man roster to make room for somebody else. So there are players that are being just given away for essentially nothing being 2 half-star players that are worth nothing to us. We could fill those slots, and then what you could ultimately do is you could take those couple players and then package them together, and there's going to be somebody out there that's willing to give you more, because a 2-for-1, 2 potential major league talents is worth giving up 1 major league talent for. And we could utilize those 5 slots that we have in that sort of manner. So the secondary thing to that is I can ultimately hang on to those players, even though we don't have room on our active roster. We've fallen into a scenario now where you see our roster expansion and trade deadline is August 24th. It's August 18th right now, so we are under a week away from that deadline. We can stall for up to 10 days until we get the expanded active roster, and then put those guys into the major league roster then, because you have 10 days to designate them for an assignment. So now's a really good time over the next week to make those sort of moves happen, get ourselves up to that 40-man limit, get those extra pieces here for future use or temporary use, the remainder of this season, and then we can make decisions next spring training, whatever the case may be. Now's a good time to make some moves before the deadline hits. Here's a perfect example of what I was talking about. And just starting this process, really, I'm going to do this a few more times, or maybe 4 more times. We have third baseman and relief pitchers from our rookie league that are both half-star current and half-star potential. One of them is the oldest guy on the roster, or at least oldest half-star player on the roster at 24 already. So, it's not like he's going to improve a ton more from here. and a very, very weak corner infielder who is got no potential to even get better. So, you know, 2 throwaways. What is being offered in return? A bunch of 2.5-star, 3-star type talents that are making above league minimum. So teams don't want to pay them to throw them away. Multi-year contracts for some. I mean, you know, like Willie Green would be a bad grab for us. Yes, sure, 3-star guy, but he's making $12.5 million with 4 years left on his contract. That's the kind of offers we're getting. Teams that are literally willing to get anything in return for something they don't like, something that's a negative on their roster. For us, Seth Beer is just about okay, just about good enough to play, and is actually just barely making beyond minimum. Is just 26 years of age. Corner outfielder who doesn't have defense, but for us, can hit. Now, this is somebody who's experienced with Arizona. He played just a little bit in 2021, so this should be a real-life player. He's your AAA kind of guy who is on the verge of kind of breaking in, but he's just not a very good defender. So for him, he's kind of destined to be a DH. Now, compared to major leagues, he just doesn't have it. Compared to us, he actually could come in. I mean, a 55, 60, 55 is probably good enough to impact the lineup immediately. I'm not going to worry about whether it can or not. But what do we give it up to get him? For us, nothing. And we add him. He'll have trade value at the very least. So a couple days before the deadline, I have added those 5 pieces that I've talked about, 5 pieces that will end up on the 40-man roster, have nowhere to go at the moment for the most part. I mean, I might be able to put some of these guys down in AAA theoretically, but realistically, most of them are going to have the right to refuse and would count as an option anyway, so I don't necessarily want to put it in as an option right off the bat. But like this one, oh, he played pro as well. This one has played pro this season, as has this one, or at least championship and pro. So yes, all 5 have played at senior level so far this season. All fielders, a couple outfielders, and 3 first basemen added in, all either 2 or 2.5-star players. So, you know, none of them great, but when you turn around and package them together, you know, they have increased trade value. So we got 4 2-star guys, 1 2.5-star guy out of that. But we have a number of 2-star guys in our starting lineup. Our bench is full of 2-star guys. So some of them, at least, are going to be capable of contributing. Seth Beer, in particular, could find himself in a starter's type role. And all 5 of them were acquired by eliminating 10 half-star guys from our minor league system. Guys that weren't going anywhere, weren't doing anything. That's the thing. If you know how to do it, there is value anywhere and everywhere you look. It's always nice when you get good updates on the player development update. And with the kind of money we're spending on it and with the coaching staff that we have in the minor leagues, you would think that it would be a common thing. But it has been good. Sydney, not so much. Potential goes up, but his current stuff goes down a bit. Juan Flores improves his control. Cervantes improves overall by a full star, along with potential going up by quite a bit. But we had already seen him as a 3-star guy before. McCormick, this is huge. That is our rookie catcher who went straight in at number 2 pick overall. Already has climbed to a 4.5-star. His I rating goes +5. 23-year-old Threadgill down in Class A. That's the regular Class A. Huge gains for him. This is a starting pitcher that we picked up. Potential stuff, +15. Current and potential. Same with the movement, +10. Current control, still not quite there yet, but it's a +5 to a 30. Potential control also going up. That's going to be his key on whether he can actually succeed at the higher level. But he improved his overall pitch speed. His overall rating went a full star better than it was as a reliever, though we seem to have him listed as a starting pitcher. but his potential also went a full 1.5 stars better than it was. So this is the first time we've seen a half star improve to a much higher level. I think this might have been actually one of the ones that we picked up via trade earlier this season. So we were already seeing something in scouting that looked to be a bit more than the team that had him, what we got out of that trade. So we've reached the end of the regular season, and here's a couple things about the season. First off, our record is sort of worse than last year. Sort of. Here's why, only kind of. For one thing, last year we played a whole 162 game season. This year they settled in on the expected 150 game season that we have set up. So with that, we had 6 fewer wins, but we also had 6 fewer losses. So we had the same plus minus when it came to wins and losses, but with a few fewer games played, that basically meant we were worse by about 1 game than we were a year ago. You can see from the win percentage that kind of sets that up. In terms of the expected record, here's the thing on that one though. Last year we were expected to be even worse than we were. We were expected to be 51-93, but we were actually 4 games better than that. So we were fortunate. This year we were expected to be 51-81. Same number of wins, a full 12 fewer losses on the expected record. So a -2 difference. That means that this year we honestly were better. And the data proves it quite simply. We had a 241 average last year. We had a 241 average with 2 games to go. The last 2 games didn't go so well, and we finished at 240, but basically identical. Now, remember, we had 2 superstars last season. We had none of those this year, and yes, McCormick, as you know, a rookie straight out of the draft, actually did struggle a little bit. So we have a superstar, hopefully, that will settle in come next season. Now, here's the big difference, though. The ERA, a full half run per game better than a year ago. That alone should have made a substantial difference in our win-loss record, but we got a little bit unlucky this year. So there's that. Second piece behind all of this on why you got to kind of take a caveat of, you know, why this year wasn't as bad as last season. Half of last season, more than half really, we went close to the trade deadline a year. Last season we had 2 superstars for a good chunk of the year. One of them was healthy for the we had him for the entire year, I think. Traded him during the offseason. And then we had the other one for 3/4 of a season. Now, he was injured, and that was part of the reason why he was traded, but we didn't have any of that this year. We had a rebuilt roster of young developing players, and that roster just got stronger and stronger as the year went on. But as we were talking about a little bit ago, they aren't necessarily gelling. We have a weak coaching staff. There's a number of factors that went into why we ultimately weren't better than a year ago. But here's the good news. When you compare us to the rest of the league, we once again finished in last place. So that means we're going to be right at the top of the draft, with the only exception being what happened in the championship and those relegated sides there. Therefore, relegated sides, well, one of them matched our record, 49-86 for Louisville. So Louisville matching what we had, so we could be first or second in the draft. Fontana Storm falling in just behind us. So we'll have to watch out for that one. We may end up with another second pick, but we could have a first pick yet again, and that means we can really heavily invest in that draft for a second year in a row. And those kind of pieces are the kind of pieces that can turn you into a winner pretty quick, because we're going to have a full season of McCormick at catcher, and then we should also be picking up whoever we're able to get in that first or second pick in the coming draft next year, and they'll boost the squad even further than what we already have now. And there's a lot of different areas we can go with that pick. I mean, we could take almost anything, because they'll all be helpful, all be useful down the road. So we've reached the end of the season. In the professional league, it is the Indianapolis Speed who has claimed this year's title, winning in 6 against the Santo Domingo Tigers, or Tigris. Amazingly, neither of the teams that reached the series are going to get promoted. Santo Domingo won their division, but just barely above 500. Amazing that they made it as far as they did in the playoffs. Indianapolis Speed, meanwhile, had a very good season. They had the 3rd best record in the USL, but that's not enough. So that was not enough to get promoted. It's Nashville, it is San Jose that are both going up. It is Calgary and Panama City, the other two going up from the International League. The promoted teams in the championship, Texas, are going right back up. Detroit Wave Riders are also going up. Brooklyn is going down, and Lubbock is going down. The Patriot League, Louisville Sluggers on their way down. Colorado Rockies have rebounded, as have Baltimore. In fact, the two teams from the same division, it's the first time we've seen that, 2 teams from the same division are getting promoted, and that is 3 out of the 4 major league teams rubber banding and heading back up. The one to stick around, Arizona, and Arizona themselves also just missing out on that rebound. Meanwhile, those same 3 teams made their mark. Orioles getting out of the wild card into the division series to face off against the Rockies, who then beat them 3-0. Rockies then all the way to the World Series to face off with Texas Rangers. So top 2 teams, both major league teams, trying to bounce back, maintaining that level of roster they had. It's going to be hard. Now, in our case, it was not the same teams, so between the 2nd and 3rd tier, but it looks like getting into that top tier is going to largely come down to having something already in place, and that little something extra made these teams a bit stronger. On the playoff side of things, it is the Minnesota Twins over the New York Mets in 6 that have won this year's World Series. Tampa Bay Rays, LA Dodgers, one of the ones going out in the championship series. Phillies, Padres, Giants, Brewers making the National League playoffs, and then it was the Blue Jays, A's, Royals, and the Angels that all were the other participants for the American League in this one. Of course, there's no promotion out of the major leagues, but on the relegation side of things, recent promoted team Salt Lake City, Mormons going right back down, 40-95, really struggling to make their mark. Shreveport, 40-92, struggling to get forward as well. We're seeing an unbalanced number of games. Uh-oh. We do see a trend here. All four relegated sides were the 4 that were promoted a year ago. They cannot make the step up. So unlucky for Grand Rapids. 3 more games played than Pittsburgh. Not sure why we're seeing this happen, why we're seeing an unbalanced number of games this year in the leagues. Schedule didn't go quite as it should. But anyway, Chicago right there at 58. Marlins had 58 wins. Pirates had 55 wins, matching Grand Rapids, but Grand Rapids had a few more losses. So close to staying up. So close, but they don't. So the 4 promoted sides from last season are all going to go right back down. The 3 of the 4 that were relegated are going right back up. So we're almost seeing these 2 leagues restored to where they were, but there will be one second-tier team in the major leagues next season. You'd figure, based on what we've seen here, their chances of staying up are quite minimal. So it's quite the ordeal to get yourself into the major leagues and find a way to stay there. Not entirely uncommon in promotion relegation type scenarios, especially in a league such as like the English Premier League, the top soccer league in the world in terms of their coefficients and their competitiveness. Huge difference between La Liga and the Premier League. For those that are not familiar with the sport of football, aka soccer, is the Premier League top to bottom. All 20 teams are very, very competitive, and they beat up on each other a lot. Now, yes, there are two teams that have massive, massive resources over everybody else, with those billionaire owners. Of course, one of those is currently going through an ownership change forced upon them, but that top to bottom, that 20th team is very capable of beating any of the top teams. Do they do it regularly? No, but they can. And every week is a threat. Every game is a threat. And you do see the Big Six dropping points. Soon to be a Big Seven after another ownership change. But you do see big teams drop points against the bottom of the league fairly regularly. La Liga, not the case. The French pronunciation, don't even ask me to try to do that, but the English pronunciation, League One, French League, same ordeal. The top teams absolutely blow away the bottom teams like La Liga. The gap is just huge. Now at the top end of the league, you're seeing it slowly getting better and better and better as that money, that Champions League money, the Europa League money has trickled in to those top programs, and now it's not just a big two. They're certainly getting better. There's obviously a big three now in La Liga, for example, but that has not changed the fact that the revenue share, the financial packages from TV deals, is just nowhere near the same, and therefore the bottom teams don't compete. They never take points away from the big teams, and that's the huge difference. They can rest their stars in those games. They can play their B team and still win 5-0, still win 3-0 against those teams. They just never get challenged by them. So for that bottom end, it's not as complicated for one of those teams to come up and potentially stay up, because there's numerous teams that are nowhere near the top end capability, numerous teams at the bottom. What you see in the Premier League every year is it's so competitive that it's really hard for teams to come up and stay up. So you see a lot of yo-yoing. What are we at? 2 out of the 3 are going to be a yo-yo team this year as we enter the final weekend on that one. Has not happened at the time that I'm recording, and I think it's still a day before when you see this. I don't remember exactly what day this episode is going to be out, but regardless, this feels like that type of scenario where getting into that top 30 and getting into that top 26 especially is really hard. Well, I did make a few more waiver claims, but I did so with that 40-man roster already established. So I did have to go through and waive about 3 or 4 players out of our 40-man roster. Just one was claimed. I was able to take all of the others and dump them into AAA, no longer on our secondary 40-man roster, making life a little bit easier on that part. We lost 1, but we gained 4 players. So it's a good trade-off on that part, and what we lost, was not a key player by any stretch of the imagination. I love where we're at in terms of what we have in the quantity of pieces entering next season, where I feel like we can start shuffling some of those pieces around to make the team stronger. We did a couple of those moves this year, but the relievers in particular are very expendable. Even though they're good, they are so tradable, because it's really easy to go on the waiver wire and replace those relievers, as we've seen. So I really think we can start taking 2 or 3 quality relievers and turn them into a quality starting pitcher or a quality fielder that is going to be an asset to the lineup and make us better. And then likewise, if we have 5 left fielders that are 2-star or better, I don't need 5 of those, especially if their max potential is 2 stars. So we could start taking 3 to 4 of those and turn it into 1 or 2 quality left fielders. So there's going to be a lot of pieces that I think we're going to start to dip into. We've built up the minor leagues, and while it's not a done project yet, we made huge gains this year in making that all happen, make that come together. You see, as we are down to just 1 player on the injured list now, players have come back into that minor league system, and we're still looking at about 26 on average in our minor league roster, so plenty. And we're not really losing anybody. In fact, we have just a single upcoming free agent. His demand is he wants money. His signability is hard, but he's only a 1.5-star guy first and foremost, but he's also somebody who is out for 7 to 8 months and is already 28 years of age and was only playing either single A or double A this season. Therefore, he's not sticking around. We are letting him go. So we're not losing players. We are keeping all of these pieces, and now we're going to start flipping. So we took all this huge number of weak pieces and turn them into almost quality pieces. Now we need to take those quality pieces and turn them into something even better, especially with another draft coming up that's going to see us probably second again this year. Means we're going to pick up a lot more top end talent as well, or a lot of high potential players as well that can help refill a minor league system that is fairly easy to replace, as we've already seen. So I'm happy with the progress we made this year, even though the record didn't necessarily show it. I think we made huge gains in totally reshaping the roster from over a 1.5 year span, from absolutely nothing into tons and tons of trade value. Now we need to start trading up. That's going to do it for this episode and this season. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.